you did fine. Thank you. The gentleman yields back his time. And Secretary, you've been great. We've got one more member here who's actually the chairman of the Energy and Air Quality Committee, so he does have part of the big nuclear portfolio up here, and I'm glad that he stayed around, and I'd like to recognize him for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chairman Shimkus.
I'm aware of his portfolio.
Oh, Mr. Secretary, we appreciate your being with us today, and I just have to say honestly that I don't envy you trying to defend the administration on this issue. I was reading the testimony, and it said the administration supports working with Congress to develop a consent-based process that is transparent, adoptive, and technically sound. And it's my argument that we already have the law on the books. The Nuclear Waste Policy Act, 1982, 1987. Democrats and Republicans made the decision to do it. And now this administration in 2009 made the decision to pull the plug after the Department of Energy had submitted its application in 2008 at the NRC. And then Mr. Jasko, who, so in my view, Harry Reid, President Barack Obama, and the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission basically made the decision. They don't care what the Congress thinks. They don't think what the American people thinks. They're not going to abide by the Nuclear Policy Act, Waste Policy Act. And as a result, we spent, I've heard different figures. Mr. Barton said around $15 billion, $13 billion, $14 billion for Yucca Mountain. And no one talked about the judgments against the federal government as a result of the lawsuits, because the federal government had to breach its contract because it didn't have the ability to take possession of the waste. So that's another $12 or $13 billion. And then the president decides, well, okay, we're going to pull the plug, but we'll establish a blue ribbon commission. And now you all are asking for $1.3 billion and pay as you go, another $5.6 billion over 10 years. And you know, maybe I'm biased, but when I go to the Rotary Club and I talk about this kind of waste, it's really upsetting to people when you talk about a $16 trillion federal debt that's growing every day. And this judgment is growing every day. And so you really do wonder, what is the president thinking about? We have a federal law that has not been invalidated, and the only reason we're now waiting for a decision of the courts is because the administration didn't act. So a lawsuit was filed. And so here we are. And that's what, I mean, I have great admiration for you and your intellectual ability and your understanding of the issue. But I tell you, I think that Barack Obama is flat wrong on this issue and that the American people are going to suffer. Now, maybe that's my opening statement, and I'd be happy to give you an opportunity to respond if you want to. I'm certainly not frustrated in any way, but if you'd like to respond, fine. If you...
Well, again, just it would be repetitive that Secretary Chu felt that the project would be unworkable, and that's again based on the issue of public acceptance, which we consider to be equally important as the scientific criterion. So, again, as I said earlier, when the judgment is made in the litigation with the NRC, I think we'll have a path forward there, whichever it is. But again, I think I've come here today to especially to try to present my perspective. It's the one of the Blue Ribbon Commission that we need to pursue these two tracks in any event. It will be our fastest approach to move fuel, to accept fuel, and we believe that's needed no matter what the repository pathway is. And I hope that we can work together to move the ball.
And I would just say that, I mean, the president's out there every day talking about all the above, and the nuclear energy is really being stagnant right now because of this waste issue. And if he's genuinely concerned about carbon emissions, he should get off the dime and take some action to expedite this waste issue, taking care of this waste issue. or we're going to have a pretty stagnant nuclear energy in the U.S., in my view.
If I may respond to that, I think the administration's actions are very consistent on nuclear power with the all of the above strategy. The fact is, after many years of talk, this administration moved out with the conditional $8 billion loan guarantee for first mover nuclear plant construction in Georgia, AP 1000s. This administration launched the program to and already decided on one license for a new small modular reactor to be constructed. And the administration feels that it's putting forward, in fact, the proposal for the most effective way to address waste management in a consent-based approach. So I think the ground truth, the ground facts speak for themselves.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I may make one final comment. Every day the President, when he talks about energy, he talks about all of the above, and yet America is the only country in the world where you cannot build a new coal-powered plant. So I don't see how he can say all of the above.
Well, I'd like to respond to that as well. In a similar vein, I think, first of all, of course, the President has stated, and I've stated, and thousands of scientists have stated, that it would be imprudent not to start addressing the greenhouse gas emission issue. So so that's kind of a given in the administration's position. Now, given that, what does all the above mean? What it means in this case is, and I'm going to go back and say, there was a lot of talk in the talk for many years. This administration put $6 billion on the table for clean coal projects, 8 major sequestration projects. 1 has started, 2 will start next year, 5 are in construction. The administration, ARPA-E, has invested in more than 20 projects for novel capture technologies. So if we're going to establish carbon capture utilization, and I might add 6 of those 8 projects have enhanced oil recovery as part of it. If we're going to establish the competitiveness of all of our resources in a low carbon world, this is exactly what we need to do, and the President moved out on these programs.
Well, I do hope, if I may make one final comment, I do hope that you would consider things other than just carbon capture and sequestration, because there's a lot of other technology out there that can be just as beneficial.
Well, in fact, if I may add, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, one last thing.
You've been very kind on all this time you've given, so of course you can continue.
So another example in this case was a week after the President's climate plan announcement in Georgetown, our department put out a draft solicitation for an $8 billion loan guarantee program for advanced fossil technologies across the board. We're waiting for input in September, but we said as examples, it could be dry fracking, it could be new carbon utilization technologies, it could be advanced fossil combined heat and power. So we're putting out the programs to establish fossil fuels as part of the low carbon future.
And reclaiming my time, and want to thank the Secretary for your time. And it was good for some of my nuclear friends to hear some fossil fuel coal stuff. So that's why I definitely am all the above in my congressional district. So it was probably good for them to hear some of that. In conclusion, again, I'd like to thank you. You spent a wonderful amount of time and in a subcommittee setting, which it is fairly unique in this process. I want to thank my members on both sides who participate in today's hearings, and I want to remind members that they have 10 business days to submit questions for the record, and I ask you, Mr. Secretary, to respond to those as promptly as you can.
Yes.
And with that, the hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Tunko.